Some places can't be explained. They can only be experienced. They're not just sacred because of what was built there, but because of what people still feel there. These places have witnessed revelation, sacrifice, and salvation. Here are 15 sacred places on Earth. Starting with number 15, the churches carved from the earth itself, Lalibela, Ethiopia. In the highlands of northern Ethiopia, in a quiet town surrounded by mountains and silence, stand a group of churches unlike anything else on earth. They're not built from stone, they're carved into it, dug downward, hewn from single blocks of solid rock, with walls, roofs, windows, columns, and altars, created not with mortar, but with chisels and divine determination. This is Lalibela, a UNESCO World Heritage Site and one of the most sacred places in Ethiopian Christianity. Built in the 12th and 13th centuries during the reign of King Lalibela, the churches were intended to be a New Jerusalem, a spiritual alternative for those who couldn't make the pilgrimage to the Holy Land. Legend says that angels help construct the churches at night, allowing work to continue around the clock. What remains today are 11 churches, some sunk more than 40 feet into the ground, connected by trenches, tunnels, and stone passageways that form an underground labyrinth of faith. The most iconic of these is Bete Georgis, or Church of St. George. When viewed from above, it forms a perfect Greek cross, carved entirely from a single volcanic rock slab. The precision of it is pretty staggering. There's no seams, no bricks, and the roof and floor were once the same surface, until hands, hammers, and hearts transformed it into a place of prayer. Each church has its own personality. Bete Mahane Alem, considered the largest monolithic church in the world, features 72 columns, and it's believed to represent the earthly dwelling of Christ. Bete Mariam is the oldest, with its interior walls covered in ancient paintings and its ceiling carved with rosettes and stars. Bete Golgotha is said to hold the tomb of King Lalibela himself. Services are still held in these churches daily. White-robed priests chant the ancient liturgical language. Pilgrims often travel from all over Ethiopia, many barefoot, many old, to walk the sacred corridors. There is no blueprint for how these churches were built. No records, no scaffolding remains, but modern engineers marvel at the structural integrity, the acoustics, the vision. But for believers, the explanation is simpler. God wanted them there, so they were made. Lalibela is not just sacred, it is miraculous. From above, the churches are invisible from high altitude unless they're captured at the perfect angle. But when seen clearly, it's unmistakable. The cross shape cut deep into the stone like a scar. But satellites can't see the devotion echoing in the stone corridors or the hands that chiseled the sacred geometry into volcanic rock. Only shadows hint at the holy. The rest is hidden by faith and time. Number 14. Varanasi, India, the spiritual heart of Hinduism. On the banks of the Ganges River, in the heart of northern India, lies a city older than legend, holier than gold, and pulsing with a devotion at every hour of the day and night. This is Varanasi, also known as Kashi, the City of Light, and possibly the oldest continually inhabited city in the world. Hindus believe that to die in Varanasi and to be cremated on the banks of the Ganges offers liberation from the cycle of rebirth, moksha, the ultimate goal of the soul. This belief makes Varanasi not just a place of pilgrimage, but the final destination for millions. Families bring their dying elders here. Others come after death with ashes in urns, ready to be scattered into the holy river. At all hours, the ghats, the stepped platforms descending into the water, are active. Some are used for bathing, others for ritual washing, and for some, like the famous Marakanika Ghat, are used exclusively for cremation. But death is only one layer of Varanasi's sanctity. Life thrives all around it. The city is home to thousands of temples dedicated to Lord Shiva, who is believed to whisper the name of God into the ears of the dying here. The city's name, Kashi, means the Shining One, a reference to the light of knowledge and truth that is said to radiate from this place. Despite the overcrowding, pollution, and chaos, Varanasi remains a place of clarity for those who seek spiritual truth. Saints, philosophers, artists, and ascetics have all walked its narrow alleys. The Buddha gave his first sermon nearby. The city pulses with memory, myth, and meaning. To walk through Varanasi is to walk between worlds. From above, though, it looks like a tangled knot of buildings pressed tightly against the slow-moving ribbon of the Ganges. It's dense, disorganized, and alive with motion. But satellites can't see the chance, the beliefs, or the moment when a soul is released into eternity. For that, you have to stand on the stone steps and look into the flame. Number 13, the sacred mountain no one dares to climb, Mount Kailash in Tibet. In the highlands of western Tibet, rising like a pyramid carved by the hands of gods, stands one of the most revered mountains on the planet, Mount Kailash. Standing at 6,600 meters or over 21,000 feet, its peak is shrouded in snow and mystery. But it's not the mountain's height that commands respect. It's not the difficulty of the terrain, the remoteness, or even the bitter cold. What makes Mount Kailash unique among the Earth's peaks is this simple truth. No one has ever climbed it. Not because they couldn't, but because they won't. Mount Kailash is sacred to 4 major religions: Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, and Bon. Each sees the mountain not as a landmark, but as the axis of the world, the spiritual center of all creation. Hindus believe it's the abode of Lord Shiva, the destroyer and transformer of the universe, who sits in eternal meditation atop its summit. Buddhists regard it as the mythical Mount Meru, the navel of the world. In Jainism, it's where the first Tirthankara, Rishabhanatha, attained liberation. And for the ancient Bon religion of Tibet, it's the seat of spiritual power. To climb Mount Kailash would be to defile the home of the gods. And so, despite dozens of attempts to receive permission and even the capabilities of modern mountaineering, no one has stood atop it. Pilgrims come from across Asia, often walking for weeks through thin air and icy winds, not to summit the mountain, but to circumambulate it. The sacred Kora, a 52-kilometer path around the base of the mountain, is believed to cleanse the soul. Completing 1 circuit earns merit. Completing 108 is said to bring enlightenment. Some devotees even perform the entire journey by prostrating themselves face first on the ground, a ritual that can take weeks. In 2001, the Chinese government received a request from a Spanish team hoping to summit Mount Kailash. The proposal sparked outrage among the Tibetan Buddhists and Hindu organizations in the world. Under pressure, the Chinese denied the request. To this day, they have never granted a climbing permit to anyone for Kailash. Mount Everest may be more famous, but Kailash remains untouched, perhaps the only major peak of its scale on Earth that's never felt the imprint of a human boot. From above, it rises abruptly, a solitary snow-capped giant surrounded by barren brown rock. The Kora path around the base is barely visible through satellite sensors that picked up the faint traces of thousands of pilgrims walking in slow circles. But no roads lead to the summit, no tents, no flags, no markers of man. From above, it looks untouched, because it is. Number 12. Uluru, Australia. In Australia's Northern Territory, glowing red beneath the sky and surrounded by flat, arid desert, rises a monolith so immense, so iconic, and so spiritually potent that it's become a national symbol. Known to the Anagu people as Uluru and often referred to by its colonial name, Ayers Rock, this single piece of sandstone stands 348 meters or 1,142 feet above the desert floor. But Uluru is more than just geology. It is alive with spirit, myth, and sacred meaning. To the Anangu, Uluru is not just sacred, it's ancestral. It's a living being, a record of creation, and a direct link to Jukurpa, a term that's often translated as dream time, but which means something much more profound. The Jukurpa encompasses the ancestral laws, ethics, and stories that govern all aspects of life there. It's through Uluru that these laws were written, quite literally, into the land. Some areas here are so sacred that only initiated men or women may approach them. Others are completely off limits to outsiders. For decades, tourists climb the rock, leaving graffiti and trash despite the local objections. In 2019, after years of negotiation and growing support, climbing Uluru was officially banned. The closure wasn't just about conservation, it was about respecting a living tradition that predates the pyramids, Stonehenge, or any major city on Earth. Geologically, Uluru is nearly 600 million years old, but spiritually, it's timeless. The people believe that ancestors are still there, not in memory, but in presence. The rock is not a monument, it is a being, a teacher, a guardian. To disturb it is to disturb the laws of life itself. The shift in public understanding of Uluru from tourist attraction to sacred site is part of a broader reckoning with Australia's past. The rock has stood for eons. What has changed is how we listen to it, and now, perhaps more than ever, it speaks clearly. This is not yours to conquer. This is sacred. From above, it's unmistakable. A glowing red oval in a sea of flat desert, it casts long shadows in the early morning and late afternoon. Nearby, the Kata domes rise like siblings in a family of stone. But what can't be seen from above are the stories, the eyes watching, the silence that humbles. From above, it's just a rock. On Earth, it's a living soul. Number 11. The Temple Mount, Jerusalem. At the heart of the world's most contested city lies a hill that holds the weight of millennia, myth, prophecy, and blood. It's known as the Temple Mount. This 37-acre platform in the old city of Jerusalem is not only sacred, it's sacred to three major world religions at once. To the Jewish people, it's the site of the first and second temples, the holiest place on earth. To Muslims, it's the location of the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Dome of the Rock, the third holiest site in Islam. And to Christians, it's part of the biblical landscape that bore witness to the life and ministry of Jesus Christ. And yet, despite its prominence, most of the Temple Mount is inaccessible to the general public. It's not just a spiritual site, it is a pressure point for faith, politics, and history. The western wall of the mount is all that remains of the second Jewish temple, destroyed by the Romans in 70 CE. Known today as the Western Wall or the Wailing Wall, it's become the most sacred prayer site in Judaism. Worshippers press their hands to the massive stones, insert handwritten prayers into the cracks, and weep for a temple that has not stood in 2,000 years. The wall is not sacred because it's a wall, but because it once held up the foundation of God's house. Above the wall on the platform itself rises the stunning Dome of the Rock. Built in the early 7th century, it's a golden dome, and it's one of the most recognizable religious structures in the world. Beneath it lies the foundation stone, where Muslims believe the Prophet Muhammad ascended to heaven during the night journey. Jews believe it's where Abraham prepared to sacrifice Isaac, and where the Holy of Holies once stood. The structure is octagonal, covered in intricate blue tile work and Arabic calligraphy, and surrounded by arcades and columns. It is architectural worship, geometry, and spirit bound together. Just south of the dome is the Al-Aqsa Mosque, a sprawling and revered sanctuary where thousands gather for prayer. The mosque has been destroyed and rebuilt multiple times, and that's an example of its central role in history. Its silver dome contrasts with the Dome of the Rock, but the two form a spiritual access across the plaza. Together, they dominate the skyline there and the soul of Jerusalem. Tensions over the mount have led to riots, protests, and even armed conflict. No other religious site in the world sits atop such a complex intersection of faith, laws, and bloodlines. And still, despite the friction, it draws millions each year. People don't just come to see the stone, they come to touch proximity to the divine. The Temple Mount is not just sacred, it's magnetic. Every step here is charged with prophecy, memory, and hope. From above, the golden dome reflects the sun, standing out against the muted stone of Jerusalem's old city. The rectangular platform is clearly visible, walls enclosing gardens, arcades, and courtyards. The western wall is barely aligned from above, but the movement of crowds around it show the pulse of prayer. From above, it's geometry. On earth, it's gravity for the soul. Number 10. Mecca, Saudi Arabia, the holiest city in Islam. In the deserts of Saudi Arabia, surrounded by mountains and sand, rises a city that every Muslim faces 5 times a day. A city so sacred that non-Muslims are forbidden to enter. A city that draws millions each year in a river of white-robed devotion. This is Mecca, birthplace of the Prophet Muhammad, the direction of all prayer for Muslims, and the site of the Kaaba, the most sacred structure in Islam. At the heart of Mecca is the Masjid al-Haram, or the Great Mosque, the largest mosque in the world. Its open-air central courtyard surrounds the Kaaba, a cube-shaped black structure that's covered in silk and gold-threaded cloth called the Kiswa. The Kaaba is believed to have been originally built by Abraham and his son Ishmael. as a monotheistic house of worship. Muslims believe that it was cleansed and rededicated by Muhammad, and since then, it's become the center of the Islamic world. Every year during the month of Dhu al-Hijjah, over 2 million Muslims perform the Hajjah, a pilgrimage that's one of the 5 pillars of Islam. Pilgrims circle the Kaaba 7 times in a ritual called the Tawaf, their movements synchronized like waves. They walk between the hills of Safa and Marwa, drink from the sacred Zamzam well, and perform symbolic stonings to commemorate the story of Abraham. Every step is loaded with meaning, tradition, and spiritual rebirth. The Kaaba itself is made of granite, modest in size, just over 13 feet tall, but its symbolic weight is immense. Inside, it's empty. No statues, no furniture, just space. Space for God. It's not worshipped. It's a direction, not a deity, but it is revered beyond measure. Around the mosque, the city has grown rapidly. Skyscrapers tower nearby, including the Abraj al-Bait, one of the tallest buildings in the world. Yet nothing rivals the Kaaba. The tallest tower includes a massive clock that's visible from miles, but it was built to point towards the true heart of the city, the cube below. For Muslims, visiting Mecca is not tourism. It's the journey of a lifetime, the journey to reconnect with God, with self, and with tradition unbroken for 1,400 years. Number 9. The Potala Palace in Tibet, the spiritual citadel in the sky. Built atop the Red Hill in the center of Lhasa in Tibet, the Potala Palace stands as a monument to Buddhist faith, but it's a literal mountain of devotion. With white walls that shine like ice and golden roofs that burn like fire in the sun. This 13-story fortress is both a palace and a monastery, a relic of ancient power and a living heartbeat of Tibetan spirituality. Built in the 7th century and expanded in the 17th century by the 5th Dalai Lama, the Potala was for centuries the seat of Tibetan governance and the spiritual home of the Dalai Lamas. Though the current Dalai Lama lives in exile and the palace is now a museum under Chinese control, its religious importance remains undiminished. It is a symbol of Tibetan identity, culture, and the indestructibility of spirit. The Potala is divided into 2 parts, the White Palace, which served as the administrative center, and the Red Palace, which houses the spiritual core, chapels, shrines, meditation rooms, and the tombs of 8 Dalai Lamas. These tombs aren't just monuments, they're treated as relics, physical vessels of enlightenment. Inside, the air is thick with incense and centuries of prayer. Monks in maroon robes chant mantras under low light. Pilgrims climb thousands of steps to walk the sacred halls, spinning prayer wheels and pressing their foreheads to ancient walls. Some travel thousands of kilometers by foot, prostrating every few steps along the way. For them, the Potala is not just a building, it's the axis between earth and the divine, between human and the eternal. From the outside, the scale is staggering. The place contains over 1,000 rooms, 10,000 shrines, and over 200,000 statues. It is an archive of Tibetan history, a stronghold of spiritual resistance, and it is an architectural miracle. It's carved into a hillside at an elevation of over 12,000 feet. It is literally and symbolically closer to the heavens. The Potala Palace is not just sacred because of what it holds, it's sacred because of what it represents. A spiritual kingdom without borders, a tradition that refuses to die, and a people whose beliefs are carved in stone. From above you can see the pilgrimage trail around the base, a pale thread on the earth. It's immovable, iconic, and utterly unlike anything else on the planet. From above, it's a fortress. On the ground, it is a spiritual home. Number 8. The Golden Temple in India, the heart of Sikhism. In the city of Amritsar in the northwestern state of Punjab in India, surrounded by a square pool of holy water known as the Amrit Sarovar, stands a shrine that gleams with divine light. It isn't large, but its radiance is unmistakable. It's covered in gold, anchored in humility, and pulses with the rhythms of sacred music. The Golden Temple is the holiest site in Sikhism, a sanctuary where all are equal and all are welcome. Founded in 1577 by the Guru Ram Das, the 4th Sikh Guru, and completed by Guru Arjan Dev, the Golden Temple was built as a symbol of universal brotherhood and spiritual liberation. It sits below street level, so all who enter must descend, symbolically humbling themselves before God. And the 4 doors face all directions, welcoming people from every corner of the world and every walk of life. The structure itself is a fusion of Islamic, Hindu, and Rajput design. The lower floors are clad in white marble inlaid with semi-precious stones. The upper floors are wrapped in over 700 kilograms of pure gold leaf that shimmers beneath the Indian sun. But even amid such wealth, the spirit of the temple is service. Every day it operates the world's largest free kitchen, or langar, serving over 100,000 meals a day, cooked and served by volunteers of all faiths. No one is turned away here. Everyone sits on the floor, rich or poor, Sikh or non-Sikh, Indian or foreigner, eating the same food, side by side. The sacred pool that surrounds the temple is believed to contain healing properties, and many pilgrims bathe in its water before entering. As they walk the perimeter of the temple, pilgrims chant, pray, and reflect. Many remain for hours, watching the golden structure reflect across the still water. Throughout its history, the Golden Temple has been the site of both peace and violence. It's been rebuilt multiple times following invasions and attacks, including a major reconstruction in the 1980s after military conflict. Yet each time it rises again, not with vengeance, but with forgiveness and faith. Its foundation is not just concrete, it's compassion. From above, the Golden Temple is like a golden dot at the center of a huge white marble square, surrounded by the silver blue of the holy pool. The city rises around it, dense and modern, but at the center is stillness. You can trace the steady path of pilgrims, and the glint of gold is visible in the right light, but no satellite can hear the hymns or feel the unity of 100,000 meals shared on the floor. From above, it's a jewel. On Earth, it's a heart. Moving on to number 7, the sacred mountain of purity, Mount Fuji in Japan. Standing over 3,700 meters or over 12,000 feet above sea level, almost perfectly symmetrical and capped in snow, Mount Fuji is the most iconic symbol of Japan. But it is more than just a postcard image. Fujisan, as it's respectfully called, is a sacred mountain, a spiritual axis where the heavens touches the earth. For centuries, it's drawn pilgrims, poets, emperors, monks, and warriors to its slopes, not for glory, but for purification and enlightenment. Mount Fuji is sacred to both Shinto and Buddhist traditions. In Shinto, it's believed to be the home of Konohanasakuya Hime, the goddess of Mount Fuji, who governs volcanoes and blossoms. In Buddhism, the mountain is a spiritual metaphor, and climbing its peak represents rising above earthly desires and achieving transcendence. During the Edo period, entire religious cults formed around the climbing of Mount Fuji. Pilgrims would don white robes, gather at the base, and ascend the mountain in silence. They'd pause at shrines and torii gates, purifying themselves with water and chanting sutras. Even today, millions climb Fuji every summer. Many do it as a spiritual act, starting with the ascent at night to reach the peak by sunrise, an experience called Goraiko, or the arrival of light. The mountain is dotted with shrines, stone markers, and ritual stations, including the famous Fujisan Hongu Sengen Taisha at its base. This major shrine is dedicated to the mountain goddess and serves as the starting point for many pilgrims. Higher up at the 8th station is a torii gate that marks the sacred zone. Beyond this point, climbers are in the gods' domain. Fuji, though, is still an active volcano, so its serenity is a bit deceptive. Beneath the snow lies fire, but even that danger feeds the sanctity of this place. The mountain is pure, yet powerful, still, yet alive. It doesn't have to erupt to leave an impact. Its presence alone is enough to shape a nation's soul. From above, it's a solitary giant that's visible on the Kanto Plain. Its circular snow-capped summit is so symmetrical that satellites often confuse it for a man-made structure. The base is surrounded by dense forest, but at the top, the crater is barren and black. From above, it looks like a dormant guardian. On Earth, it is Japan's holy heart. Number 6, the Chartres Cathedral in France. In the heart of the French countryside, rising above the rooftops of the quiet town of Chartres, stands one of the greatest architectural achievements in the medieval world, the Chartres Cathedral. It's more than just a church. It is a blueprint of heaven in stone. It's a symphony of light and symmetry meant to mirror the perfection of God's kingdom. Built in the 12th and 13th centuries, it survived wars, revolutions, and even fire, yet it remains almost entirely intact, with its soaring spires as stunning today as they were 800 years ago. Pilgrims come from around the world to not only see it, but to feel it. Now, what makes this place so sacred is not just the age or the beauty, it's the relic it houses, the Sancta Camisia, believed to be the tunic worn by the Virgin Mary at the time of Christ's birth. This holy relic is kept in a golden reliquary, and it turned this into one of the most important pilgrimage destinations in Christendom. But even without the relic, the cathedral radiates divine geometry. Its entire layout follows precise ratios and proportions meant to echo the mathematics of God. The stained glass windows, over 170 in total, are not just decoration. They are scripture in color, telling stories from Genesis to Revelation in blues and reds so rich that the term Chartres bleu was coined just to describe them. The north rose window in particular is a masterpiece of spiritual symbolism, dedicated to the Virgin Mary and composed of concentric rings of apostles, angels, and kings. But one of the cathedral's most mysterious features is its labyrinth set into the stone floor of the nave. Pilgrims once followed this spiral path on their knees, slowly walking towards the center in prayer. It is a physical metaphor for the spiritual journey, a winding road towards clarity, faith, and grace. Chartres is not just sacred to Christians. Architects, artists, and mathematicians study it as a pinnacle of design. Mystics and energy seekers claim its foundations lie along ley lines of Earth's power. Even skeptics walk its aisles in silence, because it's not a building, it is an experience. From above, the labyrinth pattern is invisible, but the shape of the nave and transept forms a perfect cross. But to those who see it from the ground, it feels infinite. From above, it's symmetry. Inside, it's a sacred sound and colored light made holy. Number 5. Machu Picchu in Peru, the lost city in the clouds. In the Andes Mountains lies a city carved into the clouds. Machu Picchu, the most iconic site of the Inca Empire. It's more than a marvel of engineering or UNESCO World Heritage Site. It's a place of deep spiritual resonance. Built in the 15th century under the reign of the Inca Emperor Pachacuti, Machu Picchu is believed to have been a royal estate and a cosmic observatory. Hidden for centuries and never discovered by the Spanish conquistadors, it remained untouched until American explorer Hiram Bingham brought it to global attention in 1911. But long before that, the Incas had already imbued this place with powerful spiritual meaning. At an altitude of nearly 8,000 feet, or just above 2,400 meters, the site is perfectly situated above the roaring Urubamba River. The layout of the city reflects deep cosmic understanding. Structures here are aligned with the solstices, and many buildings and platforms are aligned to the movement of the sun, moon, and stars. This isn't just architecture, it's astronomy, religion, and empire carved into a mountain. One of the most sacred features of Machu Picchu is the hitching post of the sun. This carved granite pillar was used by Inca priests to mark the sun's position during solstices. During rituals, it was believed that the priests could tie the sun to the earth to ensure its return and protect the seasonal cycles. No written records explain Machu Picchu's exact purpose, but its setting alone tells part of the story. It feels hidden, elevated, closer to the heavens. It's shrouded in fog and perched on a ridge so remote it seems to defy time and logic. Machu Picchu seems to exist outside of the ordinary world. Today it draws hundreds of thousands of pilgrims and tourists, and many hike the Inca Trail, a multi-day trek that goes through mountain paths and ceremonial sites, culminating in the Sun Gate or Inti Punku, which offers the panoramic glimpse of the lost city. Even with the crowds, though, the city retains its gravity. People speak in hushed tones. They walk slowly, cry without knowing why. Because Machu Picchu is not just ruins, it's like a sanctuary for your soul. From above, the city's terraces form precise steps down the mountain edge. The trapezoidal layout, the temples, the Sun Gate Trail, they're all faintly visible, and from above it looks like an ancient code that was etched into the Andes. On the ground, it feels like you've entered another world. Number 4. The Great Mosque of Djenné. In the Sahel region of Mali, rising from the plains of the Niger River Delta, stands a structure unlike any other. It's monumental, mysterious, and made entirely of mud. This is the Great Mosque of Djenné, the largest adobe building in the world, and one of the most unique places humanity has ever built. Constructed in its current form in 1907, though based on earlier mosques dating back to the 13th century, The Great Mosque is the spiritual and cultural center of Jenne, one of Africa's oldest continually inhabited cities. What makes this mosque sacred is not just its function or its size, it's the material. Made from sun-baked mud bricks called banko, sand and rice husk plus water, this structure must be maintained every year or it risks collapse. The people of Jenne gather annually for a festival known as the Plastering of the Great Mosque. Thousands take part mixing clay, scaling ladders, and repairing cracks. Children carry water, elders chant prayers, women prepare food. It is a ritual of faith, preservation, and unity. The mosque is not just a building, it's a community's heart that beats in architecture. Religious life in Jenne revolves around this mosque. It's not just a Friday prayer hall, it's a school, a meeting place, a landmark of memory. The Quran is recited here, children learn here, elders advise here. For centuries, Jenne was the center of Islamic scholarship, with thousands of students studying in traditional madrasas and producing manuscripts still preserved today. And while Islam is the dominant faith, the sacredness of the mosque also represents a fusion of African and Islamic tradition. The shape, the mud, the annual rituals, none of these exist anywhere else in the Islamic world. The Great Mosque is what happens when local geography, spiritual dedication, and communal identity merge into something new and holy. It's not just sacred to Muslims, it's sacred to architecture and sustainability, and to the idea that holiness can rise not from marble or gold, but from the earth beneath your feet. From above, it sits at the center of a tightly clustered city of adobe buildings, all in the same ochre hue. It blends into its environment, but satellites reveal its symmetry. The courtyard walls, the tower grid, and the radiating paths from its plaza all form a sacred fingerprint. From above, it looks buried. On the ground, it seems eternal. Number 3. The Ganges River, India. It begins in the icy womb of the Himalayas, born from the snows of the Gangotri Glacier and bursting forth from the mouth of a cave called Gamuk, or Cow's Mouth. From that sacred origin, the Ganges River flows more than 2,500 kilometers across the Indian subcontinent, winding through mountain valleys, plains, temples, cities, and cremation ghats, before emptying into the bay. But the Ganges is not merely a river. It's a goddess, a purifier, a mother, a lifeline, and to over 1 billion Hindus, the most sacred body of water on earth. Her name in Sanskrit is Ganga, and her mythology is etched deep into India's spiritual fabric. The story says she was born in heaven, flowing through the skies, and descended to earth in a great torrent that would have destroyed the world had it not been caught by Lord Shiva, who trapped her in his matted hair and let her trickle gently onto the land below. That image of Ganga pouring from Shiva's locks is found on temple walls, statues, and in countless rituals across India. From that divine descent, Ganga became not just a river, but a sacred pathway to liberation. To bathe in her waters is to cleanse the soul. To drink from her is to taste the divine. To die on her banks, or better still, have one's ashes scattered into the currents, is to break the cycle of reincarnation and attain moksha, freedom from the material world. The most sacred city on the Ganges is Varanasi, the spiritual capital of Hinduism, built entirely on the belief that the Ganges is the boundary between this world and the next. Here, death is not feared, it's revered. The city's famous ghats, wide stone steps that descend into the river, serve as stages for every major act of life. People bathe, pray, marry, sing, and die. Cremation at the Manikarnika Ghat, the holiest of them all, is believed to guarantee moksha. The fires here burn day and night, as they have for centuries. The ashes of the dead are sprinkled into the Ganges with whispered prayers and sacred chants. Few places in the world confront the mystery of life and death so directly. And yet, even amid the death, the Ganges is very much alive. She supports agriculture, industry, and the daily lives of over 400 million people. She is both sacred and functional, a divine being who also happens to feed, clothe, and transport the living. But it's not just Hindus who revere her. Buddhists, Jains, and Sikhs have all held the river in high regard. Even British colonists recognized the centrality to Indian life, though they misunderstood her symbolism, treating her as a resource rather than a presence. Today, the Ganges is one of the most photographed, filmed, studied, and visited rivers on the planet, yet she remains mysterious. What she gives each person, be it spiritual release, peace, energy, or clarity, is personal. One person might feel awe, another grief. A third person might feel joy. She meets you where you are. No amount of data can explain what the Ganges truly is. She is India's mother, India's spine, India's flame. To witness her at sunrise, especially in Varanasi or Haridwar, is to stand at the threshold between matter and spirit. The river turns gold, the chants rise, and somewhere within the wind and water, something whispers back. Number 2. Mount Sinai, Egypt. On the Sinai Peninsula, where the desert winds carve silence into rock and the sky stretches unbroken above jagged peaks, rises a mountain revered by 3 of the world's great religions. Known as Mount Sinai or Jebel Musa to the local Bedouin, this austere, craggy peak is believed to be the place where God spoke directly to man, where Moses received the 10 Commandments, and where heaven, if only once, descended onto earth in thunder and fire. For Jews, Christians, and Muslims alike, Mount Sinai is a cosmic turning point, a geographic anchor to one of the most profound spiritual events in human history. It's not the tallest mountain in the region, but it certainly is the most spiritually elevated. Rising 2,285 meters, or just under 7,500 feet, its summit is bare, stony, and windswept. But it's said that here, amid that barrenness, Moses stood face to face with God, and from that moment, everything changed. But this isn't only a Jewish mountain. For Christians, Mount Sinai is the place where the Old Covenant was revealed, a cornerstone of Christian theology. And for Muslims, it's where Musa, one of the most important prophets in Islam, spoke with Allah. The Quran references this sacred mountain as Tursina, a place of revelation and divine encounter. Pilgrims come from all over the world to climb it, often ascending in the darkness of the early morning to witness the sunrise from the summit. Camels wait at the base, offering tired visitors a ride, but many choose to walk. The effort is part of the experience. It's not just a hike, it is a modern-day pilgrimage. At the summit, there's a small chapel weathered by wind and time, and nearby a modest mosque. These structures don't distract, they amplify. The real temple is the mountain itself, and when the sun rises over the surrounding range, lighting the sandstone peaks in hues of gold and crimson, the silence becomes holy. Many who reach the top are moved to tears, not because of what they see, but because of what they feel. Mount Sinai's sacredness doesn't rely on archaeological proof. To date, no definitive evidence places biblical events precisely on this peak. Some scholars even argue the real Mount Sinai could lie elsewhere. But this doesn't matter to most people. Faith doesn't require GPS coordinates. It requires presence. And presence is what this mountain offers in abundance. It doesn't impress with spectacle. It doesn't comfort. It confronts. The path is steep. The wind is sharp. The air is thin. The rocks are silent. And in that silence, many say they hear something, a whisper, a memory, a question they didn't know they were asking until it arrived. Thousands climb Mount Sinai every year, Jews, Christians, Muslims, and even seekers with no religion at all. Some come with Bibles or Qurans, others come with doubt. Most leave with something they didn't expect, a shift, a clarity, a moment that stays with them. What does it mean for a mountain to be sacred? It means the earth becomes a mirror for the divine. It means the climb becomes a ritual, the peak an altar, the sky above a witness. Mount Sinai is not where you go to get answers. It's where you go to remember the questions that matter most. Number 1. The smallest country, the greatest spiritual power, Vatican City. It's smaller than most airports, just 0.49 square kilometers in area, less than a fifth of a square mile. It has no natural resources, no standing army of its own, and fewer than 1,000 full-time residents. Yet this tiny walled enclave inside the city of Rome is one of the most visited and revered places on Earth. This is Vatican City, the smallest independent state in the world, and the beating heart of the Catholic Church, home to the Pope, to St. Peter's Basilica, and to some of the most powerful expressions of faith, art, and history ever assembled. Completed in the early 17th century after more than 120 years of construction, St. Peter's Basilica is not merely an architectural piece, it's a spiritual monument. The dome, designed by Michelangelo, rises 136 meters above the ground and dominates the Roman skyline. Beneath the basilica lies the Vatican grottos, where popes and saints lie entombed, and deeper still, directly beneath the high altar, is what many believe to be the tomb of St. Peter himself. Just outside the basilica lies St. Peter's Square, an open plaza designed by Bernini to embrace the faithful. It can hold more than 300,000 people and has on many occasions during Easter Mass or papal announcements been filled to overflowing with pilgrims waving flags, praying, weeping, or simply standing in silence. At the center of the square stands an ancient Egyptian obelisk flanked by two fountains. The colonnades that encircle the square form a pair of great stone arms, symbolically drawing the world into the church's embrace. It is the stage for global Catholic events, but it's also a daily gathering space for people seeking guidance, comfort, or peace. Presiding over it all is the Pope, the Bishop of Rome, the Vicar of Christ on earth, and the spiritual leader of the world's Catholics. When he appears at the balcony window to deliver blessings or addresses, a hush often falls over the thousands below, regardless of language, nationality, or belief. It's not just the man they revere, it is the office, the continuity of faith carried from Peter to the present. But beyond the physical structures, Vatican City is a living spiritual institution. It operates as a sovereign state with its own passport system, postal service, radio station, and diplomatic network. But more importantly, it's the headquarters of the Holy See, the governing body of the Church, which coordinates everything from theological guidance to humanitarian aid across the world. For believers, Vatican City is holy ground, not because of the bricks, but because of the faith that animates them. People come here to be baptized, married, or buried in the church, to confess, to pray, and be in proximity to the physical heart of a global spiritual body. And yet, despite its global importance, Vatican City is deeply personal. For some, the sight of St. Peter's Dome at dawn is enough to move them to tears. For others, a moment of silent prayer in a side chapel changes the course of their life. Tourists walk through in amazement, pilgrims crawl through in reverence, priests serve, monks chant, choirs echo. It is small, yeah, but within these walls are some of the most profound human efforts ever made to reach the divine.